Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tier 7. I really had to put this video quickly together. I'm sorry, I did. But whatever the case, that's not really what I'm interested in talking about right now. It's to do with the idea of FoV, and this is something that honestly has got to be resolved. I feel that a line has to be drawn in the sand at this point on this particular issue. So FoV, field of view, is quite simply the size of an area that can be viewed on display. That's basically what it is. So a field of view of 60 means that you can see everything within a 60-degree cone of your eyes, yeah? A field of view of 90 means that you can see everything within a 90-degree cone in front of your eyes. It's pretty much as simple as that, and human beings have a fairly large field of view. We are predators. We have front-facing eyes, but we can still see a fair amount. A single human eyeball has the approximate field of view of about 95 degrees out. And a simultaneous field of view, the total visual perception you can get of an area, is about 160-ish degrees, give or take. Obviously it varies from person to person, so you can see quite a lot, honestly, in total. You've got your peripheral vision or sort of stuff like that. That's why you can see stuff coming from the side. Those of you who've played games like Modern Warfare 2, or have even seen footage of games like Modern Warfare 2 or 3, will be aware that seeing stuff coming from the side cannot be done, because it's basically like wearing two pieces of cardboard either side of your eyes that deliberately block off your peripheral vision. And you might think this is for competitive reasons, it really is not. Indeed, PC FES for the longest time has allowed a changing field of view. A prime example would be Battlefield Bad Company 2, which allowed you to push the FOV to ludicrous levels. I think the difference is fairly obvious then. Now, from a gameplay perspective, this is optimal because it allows you to see more of your environment, which is great because it allows you to pick out more targets. It allows you to be more situationally aware. Now, if this were the only reason behind having a larger FOV, then I could understand not having it in your game, because honestly, that's not really a big deal. It's okay if you restrict your player that way, because you don't want them to have that kind of situational awareness. However, there is a more important factor, and that being the comfort of the player. Many of you may have noticed that this is a very common thing indeed, that if you are playing a game on a monitor, particularly a large monitor, and you're sitting at a reasonable distance away as recommended by pretty much everything on the planet, you'll be sitting there playing a game and you'll get headaches, you'll feel perhaps nauseous, you'll feel lightheaded. It'll be an unpleasant playing experience if you're playing in a narrow field of view, because let's be honest, it's not natural. You're not supposed to see that limited amount. It's like having tunnel vision all the time, and your brain doesn't like it. And it interprets those images, and it can give you a headache. It can give you unpleasant feelings. Now on a television, this is not so much of an issue, because you are sitting away from it. That's absolutely fine, but you do not sit away from a monitor. Ergo, most PC gamers that I've spoken to, or indeed who know what FOV is, prefer a wider field of view. I would go as far as to be a little controversial here and say that customizable FOV is actually a bigger deal than colorblind options. And before you come and strangle me for that, I have to say this simply because more PC gamers are affected by narrow FOV, and it makes their playing experience less pleasurable as a result, than are actually affected by color blindness. That does not mean that we should have one, not the other. We should indeed have both, as standard. Now, why am I telling you all this? More to the point? Well, allow me to explain. Statements from companies say that you cannot have a higher FOV because it would present technical challenges. Now, technical challenges, what does that mean? Well, when you force higher FOV in certain games, you see certain artifacts more often than not. You see some very odd issues. For instance, sometimes the game doesn't actually render the larger angle, because the game isn't designed to support that. So you're going to see some weird stuff. So one might assume that having a wider FOV would cause a bunch of issues. So what you can do is to use a jury-rigged setup in order to prove that this was not the case. So what you can use is something called Widescreen Fixer, which is a test version of a program using a test profile designed to force games into a wider FOV. And using this program, you are supposedly able to add 30 degrees of vision to the default FOV. What you're going to see is very squashed up footage. It is squashed because widescreen fixer is forcing the program to do something which it is not designed to do. It is not natively supported. It would have to be coded in, which is what I would expect from any PC FPS. I believe that as a standard feature, as are other features like say full screen, windowed mode, resolution changes, key rebinding, and so on and so forth. So you will see this squashed. This is not designed for play. This is designed for demonstration purposes only. I would not recommend using this program for play because it is a test version and as such can cause instability and crashing, as well as it looking rather weird. Alright, so what you can do is use a key modifier to force a game into a wider field of view. You may notice on the right hand that in the enhanced field of view mode, there may not be any graphical artifacts or distortions of any sort. Unfortunately, this being a particularly unreliable and very much jury-rigged setup, this can cause it to crash. So again, now you might think, oh well, the obvious reason that they can't do FoV is because it crashes. Well, no actually. This is simply because you are forcing the program to do this. It may seem to be very easy to support this by the looks of it. You may notice no texture problems whatsoever. There may in fact be no issues whatsoever. So in that case, I would have to argue that the excuse that is being given is in fact not sufficient, and is not actually the case. Alright, so you may very clearly see that this works absolutely fine. It does look a bit squishy. Switch back, forward, yeah, it works. And you may crash of course, but the point is that there may, as far as I can tell, no technical reasons whatsoever to not include this. Here's the thing. In my opinion, the reason why this kind of thing is not included is due to a lack of respect for the PC market. We've seen a wide variety of different options which as far as I'm concerned should be default, missed out of many games. 2K Games is by no means innocent of this, and indeed a game they published by the name of Borderlands suffered a wide variety of PC issues including FoV. To this very day that game still requires, in order to get to a reasonable FoV, the use of a configurator tool which alters the config files to bind a specific FoV to the movement keys. In fact, if you misconfigure that, if you jump, then the FoV suddenly changes. It's jury-rigged as all hell, and the PC version of that game has never been properly fixed. The Darkness 2 seems to suffer from a very similar issue, to the point where, unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a config option which would allow us to do the same thing that we did with Borderlands. So 2K is blatantly disrespectful in this regard, and I do not accept the argument that 2K are on the side of PC gamers. They very clearly are not. And indeed there are many other publishers which disregard the PC as a third wheel. I understand that the PC is certainly third place on the majority of games. Not all of them, but the majority of games when it comes to the 3 platform release. The PS3, the 360, and the PC. The PC sells the least copies. However, this is not an excuse to not put in the required features in order to run on the platform. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, it comes down to the product being fit for purpose. If the product is not fit for purpose, then certainly under UK law for instance, if you were to go under the Sales of Goods Act, then any other product that was not fit for purpose, you would be entitled to a refund. In the case of PC games, this is not the case, but I would argue that something with a locked field of view that narrow is not fit for purpose if you were to play on a monitor, which of course the vast majority of PC gamers do. Although recent FPS, such as Battlefield, such as Tribes Ascend, and such as Serious Sam 3 on the PC, have indeed allowed the changing field of view. And the argument that is made in the opposition of FoV, which is, it gives some people an unfair advantage, is quite frankly ludicrous. And in the case of The Darkness 2, is in fact inapplicable. Simply because this game is not a competitive multiplayer title. It is a single player game with a co-op campaign attached to it. There is no competitive element. Ergo, the changing of FoV would, assuming that it actually did give you a competitive advantage, and that is once again another debate for another time, will not give you any advantage whatsoever in any meaningful sense. So this is, as far as I'm concerned, is a game-breaking issue for any FPS released on PC. If you have a narrow field of view that causes people to experience discomfort while playing a game, then your game is not fit for purpose. And what I would encourage any PC gamer to do that is also affected by these issues is simply not to purchase any game that has a locked field of view, and to indeed lobby for changes to be made in patches. Once again, I would discourage anyone from purchasing a PC game that has a limited field of view and is a first-person shooter at full price. I think that stuff like FoV being locked is a disadvantage that would prohibit people from buying the game at full price under any circumstances. Of course, unless it was to inform others. Why would you play a game that causes you discomfort? Why would you do that? There are plenty of other games that you could be playing that do not make you experience discomfort. It's the kind of thing that alongside intrusive DRM might be a deal breaker for you. Or might be simply, well, you know what, I'm not going to buy it at full price because this isn't fit for purpose at full price. At a discounted rate, you may be willing to accept some of these flaws, but at full price, you may not. Personally, I would not accept these flaws at full price, and I would hope that many of you feel the same. So hopefully this has been a little bit informative, and as I said before, changes need to be made in order to make games a more pleasant experience for everyone. I'm hoping that they will resolve this issue, and I would certainly hope that this will be the case. My name's been Tier 7, and this has been a little chat about field of view. I'll see you next time.